One is Enough by Flora Nwapa, Chapter 9. There must be something wrong with me, said Amaka to no one in particular. I have never felt like this before. It was 9 o'clock in the morning, and though she had so much to do, she was unable to get out of bed. The maid had arrived and was surprised to see her mistress in the house. Amaka was usually an early riser. By 6 in the morning, she was already at her site directing the day's work, and before 9, she was in the ministries, either submitting the bills for jobs already done or waiting for another job order. The maid was really a nanny whom Amaka called Auntie. She was a very dignified woman, but poor. She had had her share of good fortune in her early days, having lived with a sailor and had 2 lovely children by him. Quite contrary to the habit of white sailors in the West African coast at the time, Mr. W.C. Simon settled in Apapa, Lagos with his woman and kids. But then, the Second World War came and Mr. Simon was sent home to Germany. The order came so suddenly and unexpectedly that he did not make any plans for his family. He was an enemy of Great Britain. Hitler had declared war, and he, a German, had to quit the British colony. Nanny was left to take care of the kids, a job she did admirably, for she had the means. Her sailor had left everything for her and the kids, but she was a poor businesswoman and very young. If she had had a good person to run the business that her sailor left for her, she would have done very well indeed. But she had 2 little ones to take care of and had little or no experience at all in business. She must have been only 17 years of age when she met the sailor. She hoped and hoped that the war would end and her man would come home. At last, the war ended in 1945, and a year later, Simon sent messages, but nobody could trace his woman and children. She had changed location. She had gone home to Warri with her children. Mr. Simon was disillusioned. He married a German girl, but always remembered his kids in Nigeria and their mother. Just out of the blue, Mr. Simon had occasion to visit Nigeria about 1955 and found his way to Warri. A few questions took him to the home of his Nigerian woman and the children. But a long time had passed. There was no question of taking the mother of his children with him. He had married. There was no marriage as such between him and the mother of his children. He was in a position of influence. He joined a company that came to establish business in Nigeria. Quick arrangements were concluded and the children went home with their father, leaving a vague promise of their mother joining them later. So Nanny saw herself in the employment of Amaka, who treated her as an auntie. She knocked at the door and it took a long time before Amaka crawled out of bed to open it. My daughter. She always called Amaka her daughter because of the way she treated her. Did you have a late night? I have never known you to have a late night since I have lived with you. What is the matter? I am weak, just weak, auntie. Can I get you anything to drink? Amaka shook her head vehemently. She wanted nothing at all. I think I should stay in bed today and have a good rest. I need rest. Auntie, please pray for me. Pray that I don't fall ill. You will not fall ill, my daughter. You are a strong woman. Amaka smiled in spite of herself. Auntie, don't the strong fall ill? They do, my daughter, but not you. You will not fall ill. Can I ask you one question? Of course. When was your last period? When was my last period? Amaka repeated to herself. Then she went to the bed and sat down and asked her nanny to sit beside her. She used to keep a record when she was married to Obiora. She did things so religiously that when nothing happened to her, that is when she did not become pregnant, she was very upset and hot. That was, of course, before the gynecologist had discovered her blocked tubes. Since she came to Lagos, she had not bothered about periods anymore. What did it matter to her? She did not lose much anyway, so that any time it came, it was welcome. But when it did not come, she did not notice. But she did remember that she had menstruated at Onitsha when she visited her mother, and that was some months ago. How long ago? Auntie, she said aloud, when did I return from Onitsha? I came to live with you 3 months before you went to Onitsha, and it is 2 months since you came back, she said. She was good at keeping records in her head. Had she not counted the days until her sailor would return to see her and the children? I have not had a period since that last one in Onitsha, so you are to take it easy and stay in bed and not excite yourself too much and… Oh, auntie, but… My advice is this: see no one until you have missed it the third time. Then go and have a urine test. If you are pregnant, it will show in your urine. God works in very mysterious ways, my daughter. I have given up hope, auntie. Don't think about it, my daughter. The secret is between the two of us, and of course, your man, so… My man? My man? Then it dawned on her, for the Mclaid was the father if she was indeed pregnant. She had had nothing to do with any other man for the past 4 months. The Alhaji had dropped out of her life when he discovered that Amaka was merely tolerating him. He did not want her temporarily, he wanted her forever. He wanted to own her, to keep her. Which was more tolerable, to be a wife or to be a mistress? She could not say. She did not know which was the lesser evil. She neither wanted to be a wife anymore, nor to be a mistress, or even a kept woman. She wanted a man, just a man, and she wanted to be independent of this man, pure and simple. In that case, she was perfectly alright. Reverend Father Mclaid would never want marriage, nor would he claim her child. Oh, why? Why was she counting her chickens before they hatched? And could it be possible that she of all women should be pregnant now? She had the urge to phone Adobe, but restrained herself. What was she going to say to her? Can I have some coffee, auntie? She asked the nanny, who was now cleaning the bathroom. My daughter, I cannot give you coffee. You must not drink anything hot now. If you are thirsty, you can drink cold water. Amaka was in no mood to drink cold water, and she was not hungry. You don't want cold water? Perhaps I can make breakfast for you. So Nanny made some breakfast. When Amaka finished eating, she went straight to bed again. When she woke up, it was almost noon. The realities came back to her. What was she going to say to the man of God if it was true? She pushed the thought out of her mind, had a bath, and went to Ayo's house. Ayo was there as usual. She complimented her on her good looks and told her that the Cash Madam Club was scheduled to go to Ibadan the week after to launch the club. Amaka said she would be there. Amaka was afraid to confide in her sister. Not now, she said to herself. When it is established. But she was sure that sort of a thing had never happened to her before. She must do as her nanny told her. So when she had passed the 3rd month, she took a sample of her urine, labeled it with a fake name, and gave it into a diagnostic laboratory near her home. The test was positive, and so she was pregnant. She was going to be grown up and sensible about it. Nanny came and lived in now so that she would have someone by her side at all times. Then she remembered there was a time she was told by someone that she was going to be pregnant and the person responsible was going to be a special person. She was offended by that prophecy many years ago. So that man or woman was right after all. She registered at a clinic that was close by so that she did not have to travel far. Then she gave up contract jobs for the meantime and actually dropped everything, concentrating on her pregnancy and thinking of the best way to break the news to Izu, her lover. Father Mclaid had been around at this period, but he suspected nothing and Amaka told him nothing either. Amaka refused all his advances and he was getting upset about it. It worried him, but he said nothing to her. He had loved her with a great passion, which was mature and considerate. Like Amaka, Father Mclaid knew that he was playing with fire. He had asked during the early stages of their relationship what would happen if Amaka got pregnant, but she told him that she was not going to get pregnant. She did not elaborate and he did not press the issue. Amaka was quite impressed by that question because it did show that Izu knew what he was doing, that he was responsible. She wanted just one thing from him at the time, a base where she would gain contract jobs, make money, and live an independent life. Her association with the priest was not motivated by any feeling of affection, least of all love, at the beginning. Even now, she did not know what she felt for him. She did not miss him when he was away. He had warned that she must not phone him at home, and this arrangement suited her very well. Izu was playing with fire, he knew it. But the last thing he suspected was that one day Amaka would get pregnant and he would be the father of the offspring. He did not make any demands on her, though he loved her. When he came to see her and she was not in, he did not ask questions. Why should he? But as a man of God sworn to celibacy, what did he think he was doing? Cheating God and cheating his flock. He knew he was committing a mortal sin, but he did nothing about it. At one time, he had thought of going to the bishop to confess all, but he did not have the courage. Yet, he did his job well. He was respected by both his congregation and his colleagues. Sometimes he felt so guilty that he was afraid to associate with his colleagues lest they know his thoughts. Sometimes he imagined that they knew and would one day expose him and he would leave the priesthood in disgrace. For in fact, what other profession was he good at except ministering to God? Other priests were professionals. They were doctors, teachers, even architects. He had not learnt a trade. He was good at preaching and he could convert the devil himself if he put his mind to it. He was not equipped at all to live a civilian life. When he came to Amaka, he came in mufti. He sneaked in and out. Even the boy who watched his car in those days did not know that he was a priest. He was a careful man and he covered his path very well. But he knew that sooner or later something would happen. There was always a beginning, a middle, and an end to everything, especially with an affair like the one he was having with Amaka. What would be the outcome of it all? He did not want to pursue the thought any further, so he pushed it to the back of his mind as Amaka had done. But then the thoughts nagged him night and day. Then he began to remember Amaka's behavior of late. Why did she avoid him? Why did she not want to have sex with him anymore? Was something happening to her? Was she pregnant? The time was 10 at night. People in Lagos did not fancy going out and staying out too late because of the fear of armed robbers. How Lagos had changed. In those days when Amaka was schooling in Lagos, the city was a safe place. The war came and everything changed for the worse. People murdered at will. A lot had gone wrong in society. Father Mclaid was restless, so he drove to Amaka's place. Was something wrong? Had she found somebody else and wanted to ditch him? He knew she was no longer seeing the Alhaji, but was she seeing another person, an officer? Why? Why had he at this time of his life fallen in love so helplessly with this middle-aged woman? Was there an explanation? He had the key to the house. He opened the door, hesitated, then went into the bedroom. Amaka was kneeling in prayer. "My God," he whispered and knelt beside her. He said a Hail Mary, prayed with her in his heart, and sat down beside her. He was bent on spending the night with her for the first time in their relationship. "You have come. I thought of phoning, but restrained myself, and now you are here. Our minds were working together. Izu, I am pregnant, and you are the father, and I am happy. But I have been praying that God should forgive me for tempting you in this way. I am aware of the havoc I have caused you. As I told you when we first met, I had been declared barren by doctors. I did not use you to get a baby. How could I? I came to you to use you to get contract jobs, and now this, and..." "Darling Amaka, I knew what I was doing. You did not use me. I rather used you. I have no regrets. The baby must be born. I am responsible. All I ask is that you keep this secret until I sort things out. Nothing has changed. I shall continue to take care of you. There are times in one's life when one is left with a choice. This is the time in my life and... Izu, I am 32 years old and divorced. I am not a teenager who has got into trouble. You don't have to do anything to make me respectable or anything like that. Do you know what it is for me to get pregnant? I would have gone to a beggar in the street if he could make me pregnant. Do you know what it is for gynecologists to declare you barren and years after this to find you are pregnant? So I shall carry my pregnancy with pride. It is already 4 months and has been well established by my doctor. You can see me. And she stooped for him to see. Only I have been warned not to have sex at all and to have rest, plenty of rest. Next week, my mother will come and I shall persuade her to stay until the baby is born. I shall not breathe a word to anyone about us. I am in no way obliged to reveal who the father of my baby is. You have been divorced properly, you say? Izu asked, thinking of the custom in Amaka's village, which stipulated that when a woman was not divorced properly, her property and subsequent offspring were those of her husband by right of tradition. Yes, I have. My mother-in-law wanted to be funny, but my mother outplayed her. I have been properly divorced. The court proceedings went very well. Obiora did not contest the suit. I am free. But why do you ask? Oh, nothing. I just wanted to know. You never can tell. Your former husband might want the child and all that. You know what our people are capable of doing. Also, your mother may like to know, he said. I will not tell her. I shall tell no one about us. I have only told God about us and have asked him to forgive me. And God will forgive me? I have the greater sin. I was sworn to celibacy and... Perhaps I should ask for a dispensation. I should leave the priesthood before the whole thing comes into the open. But nobody will know. You can never tell. They slept together that night and he left in the early hours of the morning. By the time he got home, he had decided what would be his next line of action. He had been doing anthropological research, though not all that seriously. He had made notes. He was interested in the obnoxious customs and traditions that chained his people to ignorance and disease. He was particularly interested in the customs that kept the females in bondage. But his biggest assignment to himself was the issue of twins and the custom that enslaved some people in different societies to perpetual second-class citizenship. He had read books, he had talked to people, and he had started jotting down notes. Then Amaka came into his life, and he had pushed this self-imposed task to the background. Amaka did not occupy his time as much, but she dominated his thoughts, and that was the crux of the matter. He did not spend much time with her, but he had her in his thoughts every moment of the day. If he could convince the bishop to grant him some leave of absence to go to Dublin and sort out his thoughts, write his thesis on the issue of twins, he would buy time to decide what line of action he was to take next. Amaka was now his responsibility. He knew it, and he wished it to be so, but luck was on his side. The bishop had always liked him. He was one of his best young priests, very much liked by all the older white priests because of his connection with his adoptive father, whom they all respected. And besides, no one had ever said an unkind word against this gentleman. Yes, several young Nigerian priests were not behaving as they should. Many went out in mufti and got drunk in pubs and got mixed up with girls. Reverend Father Mclaid was not one of them. But then the church as a whole was lax in the morals of its own people. An action that would have sent a priest packing was condoned in these days. There was a case of a young priest who was so involved in girls that the women of his parish had to demonstrate against his continued stay there, but nothing was done about it. The bishop granted Father Mclaid his request. When he told Amaka, she thought it was a brilliant idea. There would be no gossip at all, and when he came back, everybody would have forgotten her and her baby. Meanwhile, Amaka's mother had come from Onitsha. At first, she said she was not coming because she was very busy. It was almost Christmas and the peak of business. Did Amaka not wish her well by sending her a frantic message to leave her business and take a joyride to Lagos? It was Ayo who had to go and fetch her. "Come, mother, Amaka is expecting a baby." That did it. When she saw Amaka, she knelt down on the carpet floor and thanked God. "God, I thank you. God, I thank you. With my whole heart, with my whole soul, with my everything. Didn't I say that God was kind to me? God, I thank you. Amaka, get up and let me see you. My daughter, my daughter. So it has happened. My enemies are confounded. Miserable poverty-stricken enemies who trifled with my daughter. Do not be afraid, I am here. Nothing will happen to you, Amaka. So you can look as fresh as this. I have never known my daughter look so well. Where is your maid? Call her. Ask her to bring a bottle of schnapps in my basket. That's it." And she opened it and poured libations. She knelt down and thanked God again. It was after then that Amaka telephoned Adobe and invited her and her mother to her house. "Of course, Amaka. It's been a long time, and you know how busy I am. The building is progressing very well," she said over the telephone. Yes, the building. She was putting up a bungalow in Ikeja on the plot of land she bought without saying a word to her husband. Amaka had helped her do 1 or 2 contract jobs she got herself, and they shared the profits. She had even borrowed money from the bank to start and still owed the bank. She was surprised that she hadn't seen Amaka for so long, but then Lagos was a big place. That was its attraction. One got swallowed up in Lagos. One did whatever one wanted to do in Lagos without anyone interfering. Amaka and her mother were at Adobe's house and she was surprised at Amaka. She embraced her gleefully and called her husband to come and see Amaka. "When did this happen, Amaka? You wonderful girl. So you are not barren after all. Mama Amaka, welcome to Lagos. God has done wonders for my friend." "May God's name be praised, my daughter. God has wiped away my daughter's tears. God has glorified my daughter. Enemies are ashamed. God will be with my daughter and she will have the baby in peace. Amen," they said. But Mike, Adobe's husband, did not show such pleasure. He was rather cold about it all. The women noticed it. Amaka's mother wanted to say something, but Amaka pinched her and she was quiet. When they were gone, Adobe challenged her husband. "You men and your hypocrisy. Why did you behave in that atrocious manner? Why should you turn a blessing to shame? Who is the father? Is she going to have a bastard? Meaning the baby would be illegitimate? The word is not in the dictionary of any woman who has not been fortunate to have a husband. All that matters to Amaka and all of us who know her is that she is pregnant. A beggar or a laborer is a man. Only a man can make a woman pregnant. Amaka is pregnant. May God help her. She will have her baby in peace." "She's going to have a baby out of wedlock. It is a mortal sin." "Punishable by God in the next world," Adobe interrupted. "Amaka wants to be fulfilled in this world first. Oh my God. Mike, how can you behave like that to my friend? Is she a teenager? A woman who has suffered so much at the hands of men like you and has now found happiness, and rather than sympathize and wish her well, you behave in this way. Even a priest could not behave in the way you have done. A priest would understand. Even our Mclaid would understand, and..." Mike began to laugh. "Reverend Father Mclaid, will he understand? How nice if he understands. He is the ladies' man." And he laughed on and on. Adobe was hot, and for days she did not speak to her husband. She cooked for him all right, but she refused to eat with him. A day did not pass without her phoning Amaka to find out how she was getting on. She molded her and petted her and looked forward to the day she would have her baby.